Hello.
Oh,
Can you hear? Oh, okay. You can hear me. I
I was
mean,
just on mute and had the camera covered and all of that.
yeah, me too. I'm first one here.
You are.
That's incredible.
Well,
Considering I never get up this early, ever, ever, ever for
where are you?
anybody.
Where are you coming from?
Uh, uh, Washington State.
Okay, so it's a few
So
hours
we're
from me.
Pacific. Yeah, yeah,
That's why I wanted to do it in the afternoon and not
yeah.
sing in the morning.
I mean, it's 10 o'clock. Most people are up by now, but not in my house. We stay up very, very late. We keep vampire hours. What can I say?
Yeah, I tend to do the same on the weekends. I had an unfortunate accident last night.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was flying and scouting over some new land and I was going faster than the map could render, and I hit the side of a mountain
Ouch.
and died and lost all of my wonderful equipment. So I had to, and when I respawned, I hadn't actually slept in a few days. So I was like all the way on the other side of my huge map,
Oh,
and I had
good
to get
grief.
all the way back,
Oh,
try it again with my spare set of wings,
yeah.
did the same thing.
Oh no. Uh,
Ah,
which
so
game was this?
Minecraft.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't play Minecraft, so I play really retro games.
Like
So
what?
on Twitch. Dragon Warrior
Hmm,
1.
never heard of it.
Dragon Warrior 1. Really? 1986. It's one of the very early, in fact, it might be the earliest RPG
Ah,
video game for Nintendo, at least. So, I mean, there were some supposed RPGs for the Atari, but which I have played. So,
no, I started on Minecraft years and years ago.
hmm,
And the problem with Minecraft is once you get the hang of surviving,
yeah.
if you don't want to fight the monsters, you just basically sleep at night.
Oh, okay.
And
Uh,
you sleep and you avoid all the monsters which come out at night. You might, see a zombie burning in the distance because the sunlight catches them on fire, but then you get into building and you can build and create, and it just tapped into that creative side of my personality.
yeah, yeah.
And so I've built towers and roads, and every time I come across a village, I want to make it safe from the night creatures. And
Nice.
yeah, it's just something to relax.
Yeah,
Except
yeah.
that when you finally get your wings and you fly into the side of the mountain twice.
Ouch, ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, I play other retro games too, but they're all mostly early NES. I do play I have a Atari Sim emulator.
mhm,
And so I play Demon Attack, which is a very early Atari arcade style game,
mhm.
which is just wave after wave after wave after wave of these things in the sky dropping bombs on you. So, but
Well,
yeah,
that could be fun.
it is actually. It's one of those one more. Just one more. We'll just play one more. And 3 hours later, you're still sitting there and your wrists ache and your fingers are just, and you go, oh no, just one more. Because it's an arcade game. It was made to drop quarters.
Right.
You're playing it in the arcade and yeah, you die. You die horribly. And
Yeah. Well, with Minecraft, it's very self motivated, and once you
yeah,
set yourself a goal, then you have to go gather the materials, and you might have to craft a few things, and sometimes you're running all over the map just to get these basic little
yeah, yeah.
things. Yeah.
So
So,
I'm playing the old retro, old school stuff, and you're playing the new modern. Well,
well,
Minecraft's been around for a while, but
yeah, and it's incredibly retro in its look and feel, but they keep on adding new stuff.
mhm.
So I do like that.
Yeah, the newest game I've played on stream was Vampire Survivors.
Haven't heard that one either.
Yeah, that's it's a crazy game.
Hmm.
It's just crazy. So I don't think I could even describe it. So
Well, the only other games that I play really are I play Skyrim once in a while.
Okay.
No Man's Sky,
Mm.
which is another one of those just unlimited build things and expansive games that I haven't played in a while, but I know there's so much new stuff that has come out that I'm going to start again soon.
Okay, cool.
And then Fallout. I'm
Yeah, okay. I've been wanting to play Fallout. I downloaded it on Steam and I've been wanting to do that online.
which
Uh,
one?
I've downloaded a bunch of them. So I have Fallout 1, Fallout 2. Uh, I don't
Fallout,
know. Might have
Fallout,
3.
Fallout 3 is the first one that was a first person perspective.
Yeah, that's probably the one I want to play. So,
Yeah. I loved Fallout 3, and then Fallout New Vegas
okay.
is a good entry.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and then
Well,
Fallout
yeah,
4 is where you get into settlement construction and things like that. You can do
right.
as well. It's just did you see the TV series?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I
Oh,
did. Well, I've been watching my sons play video games for years before
mhm.
I started playing again. And Fallout was always one of my favorite ones to watch. So I've seen them all. And Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, all of Bloodborne,
Mhm.
all of those style games. I love those, but my reflexes aren't anywhere near as good as they could be.
Yeah,
And I don't think they'll ever get any better. So I don't like to play those sorts of reaction where you have to react quickly and push the right button at the right time. I can't
right.
do that. I am limited. I am a limited creature at this point on playing video games. So
That's why I play, single player, and then I knock down the difficulty a little bit so that I can get
yeah,
to it.
yeah,
But playing online with other people who are much faster and younger
no,
it gets just a little bit too fast.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't generally do co-op streams anyways, so I just
Uh,
stream whatever I feel like streaming, and people show up. That's great. And if they don't, that's fine too. So,
yeah.
where is everybody? What's
I,
their excuse?
I don't know. You know, I was hoping a few
Come on,
people.
I'm up. I'm showered. I even dried my hair. Good grief.
Well, yeah, I pulled my hair back. And I wore my special
Oh, nice.
this
How it started, how it's going. Great. That's great. Yeah, that's your covers.
book one and book three, and this is the older sister and the younger sister.
Nice. Very
I have
nice.
different
Who
ways.
does your covers, or do you have them? You have a publisher that does your covers.
I have a publisher, and he got somebody, a J. Caleb Design,
Okay.
and he's phenomenal. Just really, really good. In fact, most of my dunk, I have.
Yeah.
I've got all of my stuff in here, and then the other side, of course, is her. But I've got like my square, uh, all of this stuff that I carry with me to conventions.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Little bag.
Nice.
My wife has a bag. It's about yay big with the sisters on it. I've got T-shirts and coffee cups and whatnot. I have sold 4 coffee cups and one ball cap.
Yeah. I used to do all my covers that way, and I don't anymore because basically I'm buying them for me.
Mhm.
And if I put one more mug into the kitchen will collapse. We have so many mugs, and most of them have book covers on them. So
Oh, absolutely. I have coffee cups from high school.
yeah.
I have coffee cups, military cups from when I was in the Navy for the Francis Scott Key, the ship that I was on.
Oh, goodness.
In fact, there's one just over my shoulder right there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see it.
Um, I have I have coffee cups from most of the places that I worked for the last 30 years. So I put coffee cups up on my shop and set them up, and there are at least, I mean, there are three really good cups, and I want them so bad, but I'm gonna have to wait for my wife to take a trip to Thailand before I can buy them, get them, put them in the cupboard, and
Yeah.
go, what? They've been here. What are you talking about?
But people in my house are like that about tea.
Mhm.
So much tea. So much tea. I'm not a tea drinker. Maybe if I was, I mean, I'll drink tea,
Mhm.
but to me, tea is like beer. You
Mm.
know, it's just tea is tea, beer is beer.
Yeah, but you can't sweeten beer.
No, well, that's true. That's true. But I mean, you know, flavor wise, I don't really care. Expensive beer, expensive tea, cheap tea. Doesn't really matter to me. I could taste the difference,
Yeah.
but I'm not a connoisseur. And they bring home, well, they order in basically so much tea. And there's no room in the kitchen for more tea. It's like coffee mugs or tea mugs. Get this tea out of here. But nope, more tea comes in the house every day.
Yeah. Well, when I was in the Navy, I used to get into tea, and I got into something called celestial seasonings,
Oh yeah. Oh
dragon
yeah.
tea. And my favorite was a one called Bengal spice.
Yeah. I think
A little bit
I
of
know
that
that one.
sweetened with cream. That stuff tasted absolutely wonderful. But I can't do the sugar anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just doesn't taste right without the sugar.
Have you tried allulose?
I've tried so many different things. The closest that I've come to a decent taste is Splenda, but even that has an
Yeah.
aftertaste.
Try allulose. It's
Okay.
a newer thing. And my husband eat won't eat or drink anything with artificial sweeteners in this, and he uses this. Zero sugar. But he won't eat anything or drink. He won't drink any kind of diet soda. And he had diabetes, gestational, not gestational. He had, he wasn't pregnant. He had diabetes. And since we went on low carb, no sugar, his A1C is down to like 5.7.
Really?
My son was diagnosed with diabetes, which is why we went low carb because he cared. My husband didn't.
Mhm.
And so I've lost almost 50 pounds as a result. And I didn't have anything wrong with me except for the fact that I had 50 pounds to lose. So,
Well,
but we love the allulose and monk fruit.
monk fruit.
These are all relatively new sweeteners. And the allulose, I bake with it. I cook with it. I made a batch of hot pepper jelly yesterday
Hmm.
with allulose. So it's basically sugar-free, carb-free, just what you get for the peppers.
You know, I'm actually kind of considering going back on a low carb diet when my wife goes to Thailand. I think the biggest stumbling block for me in low carb is having a wife from Thailand,
Ah, yeah. Well, yeah.
because a meal to them starts with rice and then you flavor it.
Yeah.
And when I say I want to go on a diet, she puts less flavoring on the rice.
And the flavoring isn't what has the problem with it. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, I found all kinds of substitutes for things on the carb diet.
Mm.
And I found that lupin, you could get lupin flour. It's orzo. You can't get rice, but you get the lupin flour orzo, and it's pretty good. You can get 3 packs on Amazon. It tends to be pricey, but it lasts a long time. And we found a place that makes like half carbohydrate pasta
Mhm.
because the hardest thing to replicate is pasta by far. You can get keto bread, keto hamburger buns. You can buy them from Kroger brand. They're turn out pretty well. Keto tortillas, all sorts of things, but pasta, that was the killer. And we found this place from Al Dente Pasta Company. It's called Carbonata. And it's just like half the carbs.
Nice.
So it makes a huge difference, but it tastes just like regular pasta. So you don't feel like you're suffering.
Very nice.
Where's everybody? Goodness gracious.
I don't know. You know, this is just it was spur of the moment. It
Yeah.
was just throw it out there. I've got the stream running over on my other screen over here. I'm watching it on I'm watching it on YouTube, and it's got two watching now,
Okay.
one of which is me.
Oh, okay. Oh, so we're live?
Yes,
All of this nonsense?
all of this nonsense has just been broadcast to the entire world.
Yay! Yay!
I figured, I'm not, I haven't gotten
Yeah, I don't
edited
care.
down yet. Worst thing that could happen is that somebody bombs us with something horrific, and then we can cut a video out of it and go viral.
Well, I basically stream all the time, almost every day,
Uh-huh.
saying ridiculous stuff, doing stupid things. The other day I did a hat show
Like on
because
Twitch.
I crochet things nowadays. I have an Etsy shop. Here's one of my recent creations. Isn't he cute? We call
Oh,
him Squinty the Skull because his one eye is smaller than the other.
he looks a lot
They
like
don't,
Jack.
yeah, he's squishy.
Yeah.
They're like roly poly. You could toss them right across the room, you know? It's just you can't drink anything out of it because there's no hole in the top. But and I crocheted a bunch of different gaming hats.
Hmm.
So I made up a stupid little song for a hat show, and I did a hat show in which I took off my earphones and wore a hat and talked about how I made it. A couple of witches hats, dragon warrior hats. I have a Pokemon hat. I have a Minion hat, which isn't really a gaming hat. Resident Evil hat. I have a Mario hat, a Luigi hat, a bunch of other kind of hats. And I did a hat show, and I showed everybody my gray roots because I hadn't dyed my hair recently.
Well,
Everybody
if
got
you
to,
figure out a way to do square hats,
mm,
then you could do Minecraft hats, like creeper hats and
ooh,
Enderman hats, things like that.
okay. You'd have to use 4 or 5 strands of yarn to make them go square. That was me
What was you?
popping in and out.
Oh,
What's going on?
I didn't notice.
Yeah. But yeah, you could do that. I will have to look into that. See how much trouble it's. This is my lamp. It is
Is your lamp flickering?
what?
Is your lamp flickering?
Yes.
Mhm.
It doesn't like to be up this early either, apparently. But yeah, so I just opened an Etsy. I make a lot of baskets because I have just crochet baskets because I have discovered they are the most stress relievers in the world because you're working with your hands, but it doesn't require thought. So you just poke the crochet needle in, wrap it around with the yarn, pull it out, just keep going. Over. It's a mindless task. And at the very end, you have this beautiful, beautiful creation. So lately I've been doing Van Gogh color inspired baskets. And I did a sunflowers basket, and now I'm working on a starry night basket. So I put them up on my Etsy shop and nobody buys them. So, so it's terrible.
Yeah, I haven't gotten too many people to look at my store either. Mostly it's like I don't know if you know Dino Hicks.
No.
Out on this side of the country, we call him Book Santa.
Oh, okay.
He had big white beard, plays the part, but he tends to buy books and give them to people.
Oh, nice.
And he's like an evangelical book person, for all of the authors that he knows, and he reads everybody, and so he's always got good things to say. And I was hoping he'd show up, but hi Dino, if you're seeing this late,
Buy my books. Give them to people.
talk about your books a bit.
Okay. Well, I at this point I'm a firm believer in recycling
Mm-hmm.
and reuse. So I have 7 vampire novels in a series, and I
But
have
you're republishing them all,
I
right?
am republishing. I finally got the rights back. Now that's
Right.
After 30 years, I got the rights back to all of my vampire novels, and I was so excited. And I thought, finally, I can do these the way I wanted to do them all along. Now, unfortunately, I had a brilliant idea the other day to lengthen my name because my middle name is Elizabeth.
Mhm.
And so I thought if I put Karen Elizabeth Taylor on the books, people might see Elizabeth Taylor and pick up the book and realize that she didn't write it, but hey, this is a pretty cool book. Because part of the thing about selling books is getting the books in their hands or
Mhm.
getting their eyes on the screen. If you could do that and you write a half decent book, you've got a real good shot because we've got AI writing all these books these days, and I've never read one, but oh my God, they've got to be awful.
Yeah.
They've got to be awful. But anyways, so I have a series called the Vampire Legacy series. It is a very female forward vampire.
Mhm.
She's a female. All of the narrators in my story until you get to book 6 are women. Most of them are Deirdre Griffin, who is my lead vampire, who was faithfully portrayed by my artist in Blood Secrets. And she's, this is pretty much the way she looks to me in my head. Because I was we talk back and forth. But when you hire an artist to do your covers, you can get whatever you want, even
Right.
if he thinks it's stupid. You can get whatever you want. But he does a fantastic job. So, Blood Secrets, this was the first novel I ever wrote.
Hmm.
It's also the first novel I ever got published. It was the only vampire novel I ever planned on writing. That was it, just one. It was one and done.
Mhm.
The very first version of it, which I found in a box in the garage, is 68,000 words. It's very noir. It's very dark. It's very bleak. It actually happens. She was transformed into a vampire later in our time. So she's got a different set of standards because in the current publication, she was transformed shortly before the Civil War.
Mhm.
And she's from Kansas. So we've got a redheaded vampire from Kansas because I didn't want to do any of the conventions at all. She's a rogue vampire. Uh, and so she's never had anybody teach her. So she doesn't sleep in a coffin.
Mhm.
And she doesn't do a lot of the vampire things that traditional vampires do because she doesn't really believe she can do them.
Hmm.
She doesn't transform. She doesn't really use any of her powers except for the power of persuasion and convincing people that she was never there. She's very good at that because that's a self-preservation. She's very good at self-preservation.
Yeah.
And but she doesn't turn into animals, and she doesn't turn into a mist, and she doesn't climb down walls, and doesn't do any of that fun stuff because one, she doesn't think she can do it, and two, if she could do it, she wouldn't do it because she wants to stay human.
Hmm. But that leaves open the idea that she could if she wanted to,
She
right?
could if she wanted to. We learn later on because she doesn't know in this very first book, she knows no other vampires.
Right.
And actually, it turns out that, yes, of course, she knows vampires. She knows the person that turned her into a vampire, but she doesn't know that's who he is.
Oh.
And her one goal in life is to find the bastard that turned her into a vampire and
And
kill
sure it
him.
knows.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So it's very much a coming of age slash revenge novel with all sorts of different tropes thrown in for the hell of it. At one point, she goes to the police station. And she's being questioned on recent murders that happened, and she wears her velvet cloak. And
Hmm.
so as she leaves the police station, the room, and she swirls her cloak around and says, "Good evening, officers." And they don't understand it because they just think she's weird. But she has fun and she knows, she's read the vampire books, so she knows what she's supposed to be capable of and how she's supposed to act. She just doesn't want to do it that way.
That's cool.
And didn't have a teacher to tell her, no, 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 you can't do that. You have to sleep in a coffin. Deirdre is claustrophobic. So the idea of crawling into a coffin at night to sleep makes her totally freak out. So she can't do that. She uses, heavy curtains at the windows.
That's interesting. That brings to mind a character that I worked into my first book. Um, I have one character who arrives late because she didn't want to take a shuttle from the other side of the moon because she is very afraid of heights,
Oh,
which she lives on
okay.
the moon.
That would do it.
Right. And I played with that a little bit, especially in later books when she's required to go other places besides the moon, and in space, you're always falling,
Yeah.
which
Oh
is the
yeah.
trigger for her.
Uh.
And so I've got passages where her and her boyfriend's all excited, and he books a seat right next to her. And it's like she takes drugs, passes out, and basically they reverse the coma on the other side.
Yeah.
So he's
Well, that
got
would,
nobody
yeah,
to talk to. Um,
that's cool. Well, I love putting in those little weird character flaws. And
yeah.
sometimes you can't use them, but they're always there in the back of the story. They're like Chekhov's gun, they're always there in the back of the story. And I have found after writing 7 books in a series that any little fact that you drop in book number 1 can be a plot for book number 6 or 7 or I'm actually working on the 8th book now. Whether I ever get it written, I don't know, but the process of putting out the first 7 again and having to read them and edit them and think about them and promote them makes me want to write book number 8. So that's a good thing.
Uh,
So,
in my first series, there's a secondary character. She's introduced briefly at the beginning of the second book, and then she's one of the antagonists in the third book. And not to get too spoilery, but she does something in the course of the events of the third book, which, if her side had won, it would be civilian casualties.
mm,
Her side lost, so she went to prison for murder.
uh,
I'm writing the story now, 5 years later. Uh, the new government wants to pull her out of prison and have her do some covert missions that the military is not legally allowed to do. And the government wants to be able to say, no, that wasn't us. It may or may not involve killing people,
yeah.
but they'd rather she didn't. And they send her on these missions, and I'm currently in the middle of the main mission of the first book, which is trying to the largest habitat in orbit around the Earth that has not joined the new government, has slightly less than 100,000 people on board, is a authoritarian dictatorship that refuses to play, but because of how the new government is set up, they can't just go in and take it over. So her job is to go in and foment a revolution.
Good. And you found exactly the right person for the job, and she was already there. And isn't that wonderful? I love it when things fall in like that.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be a redemption arc, to get
Yeah.
her to the point where she wouldn't kill civilians quite so easily anymore.
Or she
Um,
might lose some sleep over it.
yeah, but she's already killed like 6 people. I'm 21,000 words in on it now.
Yeah, I have that situation arose in this book, and this is the one that's currently out now. This is called Blood of My Blood. This is number 4 in the series.
Uh-huh.
When Deirdre was transformed into a vampire
Mhm.
in the first book, she was 7 months pregnant.
Mm.
The baby was stillborn. They buried it along with the body of her husband who died in the accident. And we just went on without it. She every once in a while thinks about the baby because she would have liked to have had a baby, but baby was dead. Baby was dead. When I started writing book number 4, my editor said to me, "What if the baby wasn't dead?" And I said, "No, the baby's dead. The baby's dead. The baby's dead, period. End of discussion. The baby's dead." He said, but I said, no, the baby is dead. And we went on about this, a couple of different phone conversations. We finally got, and I think I was sleeping and I woke up and I went, shit, the baby's not dead. The baby's not dead. And I called him the next morning and said, the baby's not dead. He said, thank you. So this cover, this girl right here is Deirdre's daughter, who is half vampire, half human. She dragged her way up from the grave that she was buried in. She was found by a voodoo priestess, runaway slave, and she was raised successively by all of the daughters of Philomena, who was the woman that found her in the cemetery, who knew what she was and kept her safe. And she aged very, very, very slowly because of the vampire blood.
Right.
And basically, this poor girl went through, 10th grade 6, 7 times. 11th went through high school so many times because they had to keep moving around because she, she wouldn't age. They had to keep moving her around. She is one very, very angry teenager when we get to this book. And all she wants to do is kill her mother, kill the bitch that left me for dead. So, but that's one of those things where I never planned on the baby being alive, and I fought it. Deirdre fights it all throughout this book. She keeps going, but the baby is dead. The baby was dead. She can't be alive. She's dead. So I love when you have a bit of a story that comes out as a result of one small situation that you just threw in for color. Let's be honest. We invent a lot of tragedies and things that happened to our characters in the past just to make them feel more real. At least I do.
Yeah, no, I get that. I don't know. I've had visions and images that come through in my head. That my first book started in 2005. I had this dream. It was of a young woman on the moon, and she was coming home, walking down this passageway, and I thought the passageway has to be taller because people are going to have higher strides on the moon.
Ah,
She's got
interesting.
this
Yeah.
flowing outfit on, and what that would look like stuck with me. And basically that scene it's in the first book, and she's getting home from flying at Heinlein Aviary.
Nice.
And yeah, that's basically where she came from. But then I have a picture. I'll just take the camera up there on the wall. You see that?
Yes.
That is Saucy Fawn. And it is a nude. But it's basically a rendering of an image by an artist friend of mine. And Fawn ended up being Dawn's sister.
Okay.
So she starts out in the book looking like that. She goes through a few transformations, and there's reasons behind that, and it's sad when you get there. Spoiler alert. But yeah, those are the things that brought it in and influenced me. And then when I was writing, Dawn's personality, the kind of person she was, I took that from three women in my life who are funny. They are, great, good people and honest. And it's, my best friend from high school, Sherry, my best friend for years who was married to a best friend from the Navy, Dee, and then a girlfriend I had who we had a unusual but really nice relationship just before I got out of the Navy. Her name was Anna. And so as I wrote the book, in the first pass through, I got it all right. And then I was looking at the second pass, I was kind of developing the personality, getting kind of more reasons behind things. And at some point, it occurred to me, oh, she immediately in the beginning sits down between an older gentleman and a woman about her age. If I had been Heinlein, writing this as Robert A. Heinlein, she and that older man would have gotten together. She didn't even talk to the guy. She talked to the woman. And they had this whole time together flying around and later reconnected and we're talking later. And then there's another character. It has to do with making a dress. And it suddenly occurred to me, oh, that's the ex-girlfriend. This is the new girlfriend. And there's this whole romance going on in the background. And it didn't surprise me because of those three, only one of them is married to a man.
Mhm.
And the other two are in long-term relationships with women.
Okay.
So it wasn't that much of a surprise, but it was interesting that that was already there on the page. I just threw in like just a couple of things and it all came together. And then the very last scene, one of the last scenes is she's over there. She sees the girl, and the description with the flowery dress and the combat boots, the hiking boots, is a specific picture from the girlfriend. That's
one of my favorite combinations, by the way. It's
Yeah.
a pretty frilly dress and motorcycle boots. And when I used to do conventions, that's what I did
Yeah,
because the boots were comfortable. So
I love the look because it's yes, it's pretty, but it's also practical, and you know that this is a person that you can enjoy, have a good time with. And I'm not saying just in bed. This is somebody
no, I know.
go hiking with, and you can go, do things, and that's what these people were to me.
And it's nice when you could put people into your books and you can have a new relationship with them or renew or do the old relationship again. I don't do much of that.
Mhm.
But I think it's nice when you can reconnect with people that maybe you've lost over the years.
I took bits and pieces of people.
Mhm.
I also took bits and pieces of names. One name that I tend to use quite a bit is Tom Allen.
Okay, that's a good name.
I have a cousin named Tom Allen Myers, and I've used his name a few times, but like in the first book, he's a very, very old, and I go on and on about how just old he is. In another book I wrote, which is on submission right now, I wrote the first thing through, and as I was doing my reread, I realized that I had two separate characters named Tom Allen, and I killed them both. One I burned to death, and the other I blew up. So I had to change one of them's name.
Now, do you put yourself in your books?
No, no.
I mean, other than the fact that every character in that book is you.
To a degree,
yeah.
But and this is where I try to get into the viewpoint of the characters. Like, for example, Dawn's viewpoint might be considered very liberal. She's much more liberal than I am. She has, she's got a vision and a view, but then another viewpoint character is Elliot. Elliot Humboldt. He is the second most powerful executive at the second most powerful corporation in the corporate federation, and he's tired of being second. He is narcissistic. He's on the spectrum of being a sociopath. He is just driven, he's just driven, and I'm not like that at all. But I wrote him that way. I actually ended up doing research on sociopaths to get him just the right spot. The first time I went to Congregate, which is a convention in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay. I may have been there once.
Okay.
Ages ago. I mean, really, ages ago. Eons.
my wife and I ended up sitting in the lobby area, and there was this gentleman who was sitting there, and we got to talking. And I was talking about this character that I was kind of, dealing with, trying to get his personality right. And I mentioned a sociopath, and he was really adamant about I'd had to read certain books, and I've got them on my shelf now. I had to read a certain book and to really dig into and he gave me some really great advice. That person turned out to be Michael Stackpole.
Okay. Yeah.
Coincidentally, I don't know if you can see it, but see that little touch of blue right up in there?
Yes. Yes.
Challenge number 47. Challenge
Okay.
45 is next to it. Those I was published in both of those. Michael Stackpole had a short story published in Challenge 47
Cool.
as
Cool.
well. So that's a neat connection. But yeah, that was Michael Stackpole. I didn't even know. I mean, I knew the name. I've never seen his face. And we had this conversation. And finally, when I figured out who he was, it's like, holy shit. But, Michael, if you're out there, I used that information to make sure that I got Elliot's personality right. And I had so much fun with him because the main thing about him is nobody likes him. His wife tolerates him, but you'll notice that his wife is the number one shareholder in the company,
Mm.
and she put him on the board. She's on Mars with the children and grandchildren, and he's in orbit around the Earth on the corporate federation headquarters where he's been for like 20 years. So that's where she put him because she knew he'd be effective there and he wasn't needed for parenting.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, no, I have a character in she shows up in Blood of My Blood, who is the old lady that lives in the cabin next to Deirdre and Mitch, my main vampire couple. And she's not in it very much. She offers some advice every once in a while. And I realized after I wrote her and after I read it that that was me sitting on the front porch of the cabin, smoking a cigarette, wondering about the people that live next door.
Mm.
And trying to help out in my grandmotherly way. Of course, when I wrote this, I was much younger, but it turns out now that that woman sitting on the porch is me, only I quit smoking years ago. So unfortunately,
Yeah.
I can't sit on the porch in a cabin in Maine and smoke and wonder about the vampires that live next door.
No. I
Oh, well,
I spent
oh God, I miss smoking.
I spent a decade trying to quit.
Oh,
I on and off smoking forever because I started smoking as a teenager, and then all
yeah,
through
I
my
did too.
80 years. Back then, you could still smoke on submarines. That's how long ago it was. And I didn't finally quit until two things happened. One, my wife moved in. Second wife moved in because first wife smoked. My new wife moved in and said that she'd rather I didn't smoke because she wants me to live a long time.
That's nice.
And the second one was I finally realized the reason that I couldn't stay quit is because I had it in my head that after a while I could have just one cigarette and it would be okay.
No,
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 no.
no.
And to anybody out here who sees this, who's trying to quit smoking, one cigarette is enough to get you back in
Oh
it
yeah. Oh yeah.
every single
Absolutely.
time.
Yeah, I finally quit reading a book by Alan Carr,
Mhm.
which was titled The Easy Way to Quit Smoking.
Okay.
And I went, yeah, right. But a friend of mine, Hal Bodner, who writes uh gay vampire novels. He's a hoot. He writes all this very gay super. I mean, he does all sorts of interesting novels, but playing around with tropes and everything. But he said, "Oh, you got to try. You got to read this book." So I did. I read it once, and then I read it twice, and then I called him up and said, "Damn you, I'm quitting." So I read it a third time, and on the third read, I smoked my last cigarette, my very, very last cigarette. And I realized what my father always told me, which was it's easy to quit smoking. And I used to look at him and go, "You're crazy. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life. I can't do it, Dad." He said, "I did it. It's easy to quit." And I realized that, yes, it is easy to quit smoking. You just never pick up another cigarette again, no matter how bad you want to. And that sounds simplistic and that sounds stupid, but if you're really ready to quit,
Mhm.
don't, I mean, don't, I smoked my last pack of cigarettes, knowing that it was going to be my last pack. And when I got to that last cigarette, I enjoyed every second of it. And then I said, no more.
Yeah.
And I never picked up another cigarette. Now I dream that I'm smoking,
Mhm.
and
I,
I always feel guilty. And
I,
sometimes I realize it's a dream and say, screw it. I'm gonna smoke this cigarette because it's just a dream. But I have never had another cigarette since then, and that's been since like 2007. A really long time. But I started smoking when I
really,
was 16.
that's funny because for me it was in I got married in 2008 and I went to pick up my wife in 2009. So we've been quit almost the same amount of time.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
You a
That's
little bit
cool.
more than me.
Uh, but I started smoking in uh the late 60s.
And to your point,
Yeah. I smoked longer.
maybe.
So, but
I can't remember when I started smoking. Suppose I was like 12 or 13, so that would be like 74, 75, something like that.
okay, so that's still,
In there,
you were
yeah.
younger than I was, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
In 74, I was 20,
You were
21.
20 in 70. Okay. I turned 20 in 82, so
Okay. All right. So we're about 11 years apart.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Or 9,
Somewhere
whatever.
in there.
Yeah. What the heck? What's a year here or there? It doesn't make any difference.
No.
So, I could talk more about vampires if we want. Are we done?
We can do whatever we want. There's
Yeah.
nobody out there. It says 2 people watching, but I've got a sneaky suspicion that one of those people is a bot.
Oh, okay.
Nobody has commented, nobody has said anything. Um,
Uh,
you know, but yeah.
yeah. The
Uh,
Okay. So yeah, talk.
my book. See, oh, and I wanted to talk about the cover a little bit
Yeah,
because
that's because that's a gorgeous cover.
it is, and I think what I like most about it is that it doesn't match my description. No, hear me out.
Okay.
In the book, what she's wearing is more like a tight suit with flowing things, so she looks more angelic.
Okay.
If that had been on the cover, this would be a fantasy novel
Good
cover.
point. Yeah.
So he put her in this more science fiction suit, which and then with the dome, uh, with those hexes behind, you can see this is science fiction,
Yeah.
not fantasy. But and the reason it's more angelic and more of a fantasy setting is because she's in a theme park. The theme park has different fantasy and whatnot
Cool.
areas.
Yeah.
There's one area that is all decked out like heaven, and there's an angel, a guy who has actual wings on, by the way. He's been body modification. He's got wings, and his name is Elam.
Hmm.
There's a running joke in there too that he smells like cookies.
Okay. Well,
Fresh.
angels should smell like cookies.
Do you know the movie that comes from?
No,
Michael.
no. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Michael. He smells like cookies, so I use that. And this is one of the things that happened that made me realize how Dawn leaned was that he hit on both of the girls, trying to get them to come back to his place in heaven.
Ah.
And they literally shot him down. And in hindsight, that's like, well, yeah, that's because they were going to go make plans, you know. Yeah, it's just it's but yeah, the aviary has large different sections. At one point, I've got them
Excuse me.
participating in a fantasy event, which is basically this fairy falls in love with this bug king, and they, and there's going to be a war, but then the two fall in love and they stop the war, and then they have a big feast and a celebration, and there's lots of music. And if you've ever seen George Lucas's post Star Wars animated film, Strange Magic,
I probably have.
I'd recommend it. It's
Yeah.
really good. Um, but it's basically that story writ large.
Oh, okay. Cool. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, the book I'm currently working on um is a completely different character. And this is the book that my publisher's entitled The Vampire Vivienne. Yes, it was around the same time as the Vampire Lestat, the Vampire Armand, and I said, don't we want to worry about copying Anne Rice? And they said, yeah, we wanted that to happen. We want people to think that this is an Anne Rice book. Well, there's no way you could pick up the first page of one of my books and first page of one of hers and have any doubt whose is whose.
Right.
But Vivienne shows up in book number 2, and she shows up in book number 3. And we in our household have dubbed her the Hurricane Vivienne, because she's one of those characters you were talking about your character,
Mhm.
the woman who is in jail for murder, but it would have
Right.
gone the other way. Vivienne is very much that character. She's very much a sociopath. Whatever's good for Vivienne is good. And that's all she cares about, is what's good for Vivienne. She is bisexual. The only reason she's bisexual is because there's only 2 sexes. You can only have men or women. Because if there was a third or a fourth or a fifth option, she's good. She's good with anything. And she's up for anything. She'll do almost anything. She's just this hurricane. And when she shows up, the whole scene goes whoosh. And it's just a completely different vibe.
Mhm.
And I don't know where Vivienne came from, because she's not me. Deirdre moaned, she whined, she pulls up her big girl panties, she gets on with life. In a lot of situations, her personality and mine are very close. But Vivienne, I have no idea. Maybe Vivienne is the woman, the vampire I would like to be, because she doesn't have a care in the world. The world takes care of her. She doesn't take care of anybody.
Mhm.
But this 5th book, The Vampire Vivienne, I said to my artist, I said, now here's the cover. I said, you know how in all those romance novels, because there's a good bit of romance in The Vampire Vivienne, because she's always loving on someone. So in a gothic romance, you have the castle in the background, the big castle. It's sinister, and there's a full moon, and and then you see the heroine running away, just running away. And that's the cover of almost every gothic novel when I was reading them, gothic romance novels. And of course, I was a huge fan of gothic romance novels, which you could tell instantly, once again, from the very first page of anything that I've ever written. You say, this woman loves gothic romance. And yes, I do. But so I said, but instead of the mansion in the background, or the castle, or the haunted house, or whatever, it's the guillotine. And he was going on vacation. He said, so when I brought this up, I said to him, don't do anything with it, because I don't have the book edited. I don't even have it pulled out from the raw text yet. I have to edit it and do all that sort of stuff. So just think on it. And 2 days later, I had a cover, because he said, you had me at the guillotine. And
Nice.
so I have this, and I can't show you because it's in process, but
Right.
I'm going to be doing a book cover reveal on Facebook soon with the Vivienne cover, because it's just It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. You couldn't ask for anything better in a cover. This was exactly what I wanted. He gave me exactly what I wanted. Whether it sells doesn't matter to me. I hate to say that. That's not true. I want everybody to go out and buy a copy of the Vampire Vivienne because she's a vampire you've never seen before, ever, anywhere. She's
Yeah.
just her own creature. But yeah, so I got my Gothic romance cover. I guess I can die happy now that I have a genuine Gothic. I actually started a Gothic novel once that I designed a cover for, which was exactly what I just said. It's a mansion in the background with the moon, the full moon in the sky,
Right.
and the heroine running away. And but my covers leave a lot to be desired. When I design my own covers, they're not great. Well,
Well, for me, I mean, I'm grateful that I've got such really good covers.
yeah, you really do.
I I need to find the right people to read my books.
Yeah.
Um, my publisher, great guy, Chris Kennedy. Um, Most of what they put out is military sci-fi. My books, especially the first one, it's not military sci-fi.
Yeah.
The second one introduces some military elements to the story, but I still don't think you could classify the book as military sci-fi. It isn't until the fourth book, which is the full-on war story, where it's all about the war. That's military sci-fi, the last book. But I've never really appreciated the subcategorization where this is military sci-fi and this is other kind of sci-fi. It's like this is science fiction. It's
Yeah.
supposed to give you new ideas, and not all new ideas have to be with the military and shooting things, you know. But that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for people who like the old Heinlein novels or Asimov or, David Brin,
Mhm.
Rick Benford, Larry Niven, those kinds, that kind of genre where there may be military involved, but it's about the characters, it's about the story, the new settings, and all of that. But getting new people to read a book,
Yeah, I know it's tough. And these are, I'm getting a whole new group of readers from the re-releasing these, but it's not a lot, but it's the same. It's nice to have readers. It
yeah.
really is.
Well, I can
That's what
imagine.
we do this for. We don't write the books so that we could say, "Oh, look at this. I wrote a book and here it is." We don't do that. We want people to share our vision. We want people to share our world. And sometimes they like it and sometimes they don't, but that's life. I'm one of those hate me or love me. And you could see from my reviews, if you go on Amazon, people go, "This was crap." People go, "This was the best book I've ever read in my entire life." So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've got a bit of a mixed bag. I've got a lot of good reviews, but then the first booktuber that looked at my book was a younger guy, and he read the first book and he didn't get the premise. The moon, it's a post-scarcity society where most everything of government functions has been automated. The rules are set, the AI can handle all of the things, and it's only when something happens that the AI cannot handle that they have to call an assembly, which is basically 7 people who it's a delegation vote where you cast your vote for somebody you think could handle the problem,
yeah,
who
yeah,
you trust. And then they take your vote and their vote and they give it to somebody they think can handle the problem. And all these delegated votes pile up until you've got 7 people. And then the one with the most votes delegated to them becomes prime minister. Well,
that's an interesting system. I like that system.
this is the first time there's a crisis. It's the first time in like 70 years that they've had to call an assembly.
Mhm.
And just before it happens, Dawn here, who was flying, has an accident, and somebody takes a picture of it while she's saving somebody's life. They enhance the image and spread it around as a meme. So Flash on the moon. She's suddenly become famous. And because of that meme and her little sister's boyfriend nominating her for the position, she ends up at the top spot. That and the fact that that girlfriend that she just met happens to be a popular actress.
Ah, helpful.
And she was like about eighth, and she dumped all of her votes on Dawn at the last minute. So anyway, he couldn't buy into the premise that somebody would basically be voted into office based on a meme.
Ah, well, he's not
Like,
paying attention, is he?
we just had a president who was a reality TV show. I mean, what? You know,
Yeah. Oh,
and
never mind.
because of that, that colored everything about how he viewed the book.
Yeah,
So he gave me a 2 out of 5 stars. And I thought,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. I
and,
know, but you have to brush those off.
you know,
You have to brush the bad ones off if you can. I can't. Okay, I fume
it's
about them
just
for
that
days.
it's just that I don't think any of his 72 subscribers are ever going to read my book.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a killer. Yeah. Oh, the one thing I wanted to mention is that the very first novel I have is now out in audiobook.
Oh,
And
audiobook.
and it is I did it through audiobook creation exchange, ACX on Amazon, and I auditioned narrators
Uh-huh.
and I found Deirdre. I found her. It was very, very exciting. And her name is Autumn Grumorn,
Mhm.
which is obviously her stage name, her reading name. I don't believe that's her real name. And she's amazing. And we worked together on this, and she had me in tears. Now, this Blood Secrets, I'm going to show the cover again while I talk about it.
Sure.
Because why wouldn't I? Um,
Somebody's going to watch this.
this is, I mean, this is the first novel I ever wrote. This is my baby. This is my firstborn. This was the fruit of my labors for many, many years. Um, and I've read this book so many, many times. And when I listened to the audiobook for this, it was all new. And
Mhm.
she had me laughing out loud. She had me crying. There's one part where Deirdre sings, she's in Mitch's the love interest. He's a detective. He's investigating the murders that she didn't commit, but she might be involved in, or he thinks she might be involved in, and then he doesn't because he's fallen in love with her. But he doesn't know she's a vampire. But she's in his kitchen, cooking him scrambled eggs, and she starts singing this song from the Civil War.
Mhm.
And I never learned the tune. I found about this. I did research on the Civil War, what were popular songs, and this is Somebody's Darling Died Today. And it's a very sad song
Mhm.
and just poignant. And when Autumn starts or Deirdre starts singing this song, I have tears streaming down my face. She's so good. She's so good. And she took all of this stuff that to me was just old because it's been living inside my head for the over 30 years now. Because I started writing this book in 1988. And she's amazing. She's just amazing. So even if you don't want to read the book, you should listen to the audiobook because it's just great. She's working on Bitter Blood now, and Bitter Blood is actually one of my favorites. And I don't know whether you could see the cover too easily here. Bitter Blood starts out in London,
Mhm.
and therefore Big Ben, and uh, this is actually the same face from the other one, but just shadowy. This is a very dark, shadowy book.
Mm.
And she's working on that now, and she's doing the same thing to me again. She just does these scenes, and I go, "Oh my God, I can't believe it. This is so great." And it's like, no, it's words I wrote. But every once in a while, as an author, you get to a scene or a paragraph or even a chapter where you go, "Who wrote this?" Because I don't remember doing it. Now, in my case, that's because it was 30 odd years ago. And how can you remember every word you wrote? But even recent stuff.
Let me tell you something. I wrote Final Assembly in 2017 and finished it in 2018.
Oh, wow, that's a quick one.
Well, I'm a fairly fast writer when I know where I'm going with something.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the hard part, is figuring out where you're going. But the when it first was published, I pulled it up on Kindle and I started reading it. I decided I was going to read my book.
Mhm.
And I hadn't read it in a little while. And I think that's one of the things that really kept me going is I'm reading it and I'm enjoying it. And I laugh at the jokes and I cry at the really hard spots. And it's just like, I'm not half bad.
Yeah.
I get that feeling that,
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
good. And if that kind of thing, though, in all the books, that helps me say, no, I am good. These are good books. I put a lot of work into them, and I just need to find the people who really want to read good books.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but I'm not published by a major publishing house, so there's no, New York Times best-selling list.
yeah. Well,
But
I was published by a New York publishing house. I was
mhm,
published by Kensington,
mhm.
and it didn't do me any good. I part of the problem was I came out in 1993 before there was a classification of paranormal romance.
Oh, okay.
So that's pretty much what I write. And it has a darker horror slant to it, but there was no paranormal romance at the time. Linda Leal Miller had written uh Forever the Night or something, which was the very first vampire romance type novel.
Mhm.
And that was in like 1990. But they didn't get around to giving it a name until long after I was published. So I wrote a vampire novel. It went to Kensington. They said horror. They slapped it into the horror genre, and there it sat. And it is horror. And as we go on, it gets more horror and less romance, but it's a combination. The first book is a mystery romance horror novel.
Mhm.
Because I wasn't planning on doing anything with it. It was just a novel that I wrote. I was an English major, and my kids were old enough to sleep through the night. I said, I'm going to do something with my night. I'm going to write a book, and I did, much to the dismay of my English professors, who said, why did you write about vampires? And to the dismay of my mother, who said, couldn't you write about something nice? And the dismay of my friends, who said, you could do better. Yeah,
No,
well,
you gotta write what you love.
yeah, and I published it.
Yeah.
Me, just
Mhm.
me. I went to Grove City College. What the heck did I know about life or anything? And then I wrote another one because my neighbors wanted to read it. That was the only reason I started Bitter Blood, was because my neighbor said, that was really, really good. We really liked your first book. We don't care if it ever gets published, write another one.
There you go.
And I did. And then when my agent sold it to Kensington, she sold it as a 3-book series. I had, I had no idea what was going to happen with
Oh,
the third book,
I love that.
which is this one.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, that
Well,
was a fun book to write. Not, but yeah,
my
show
my
the covers.
my first book, Final
Yeah.
Assembly, when I was at the point where I knew I needed professional help, I got an editor and she went through the book, the original manuscript, and she got to about the 60% mark. And she came back and she pointed out that there was a spot at the 60-40 mark where you got these funerals going on, you got everything's wrapping up, these stories are done, and then the rest of the book is in a different location, it's different stories.
Ah,
That's the beginning of your second book.
yeah.
And so I bit the bullet, I made the slice. I filled out some more story in book one, that hadn't been there before. And then I went to town and I expanded and I created, and book 2 came out of that.
That's
That's
a
why
good cover
my
too.
first trilogy is 4 books long. Because I knew what books the next 2 books after that were.
Yeah.
Broken Trust and Stolen Dreams. Well, Broken Trust at the time it was called Baron of Mars. But the 4th book was more the war story and wrapping up all the storylines. But I had a major epiphany about what book 4 needed to do and how it needed to go. And so that one changed to be Stolen Dreams. But yeah, it was supposed to be a trilogy. I'm just not that good. So
Well, mine was supposed to be a trilogy, and then it became 5 books, and then it became 7 books. Now the 4 and 5, I sold them twice.
mhm,
Kensington bought them, paid me,
mhm.
not much, but paid me in advance. I started writing, they canceled them.
Really?
And then a couple of years later, I get a call, they'd like to buy them again. I said, sure, no problem. Uh, so that's
Okay.
why I got paid for Blood of My Blood and the Vampire Vivienne twice.
That's cool.
So that was kind of nice. And then 6 and 7 was supposed to be 6 and 7 was supposed to be number 6. And then number 7 was a completely different spin-off of my oldest vampire and how he became what he became. And how his brother became what he became, because his brother ends up as a character in the Vampire Vivienne.
Right.
We don't know they're brothers yet. And then he's a major villain, basically, in Vivienne. And of course, in Vivienne, was it Vivienne or
Mhm.
at the very end of Vivienne, the world discovers there's a show called Real Life Vampires.
Mm,
And they're exposing, as part of
a reality
this
TV.
other group, it's a reality TV show about Deirdre and Mitch and the lives they live. And they do these really, really hokey scenes. And I had at that point, I had a website set up for Real Life Vampires with the cartoon characters of the two. It was Bob Smith and Terry Hamilton,
Mm.
Who were the things. And they do these really, really bad shows of here's what they've done. And then they have this horrible female ghoul playing Deirdre with her red hair shining in the ends, going, I shall suck your soul. And
Right.
and they do this big long thing. They have one scene where the guy's talking about the new car he just bought.
Mhm.
And Mitch, who is a ex policeman and loves military movies and all of those kind of things, says, oh God, he's a goner, because he just talked about this new, he's never, too bad Chuck will never get to drive that new car. And yes, like the character that's playing Mitch rips Chuck's head off, and it's like, oh God. So we have a lot of fun with that. But of course, all the vampires being exposed is a bad thing.
Right. Right.
Eventually, it all blows over because their recreations were so bad, everybody knew it was a hoax all along.
Mhm.
So, but
Well,
yeah, that happens as a result of Victor's brother. Oh,
one
shoot.
of the things that has always caught my attention with prolific authors is that they'll write 7, 8, 10, 20 books in a series.
Yeah.
And I'm one of these people who like to have a complete series to at
Yeah.
least know that there's an end coming. Like
Yeah.
one of my favorite current authors is Christopher Rocchio.
Okay.
He's writing the Sun Eater series. I have it up there. The most recent one, Disquiet Gods, is right there, and the rest of
Okay.
right there. He's got one more book coming out. It's a 7-book series, and it'll be done. But if he were to go and do 8 and 9 and 10 and 11, I I have a hard time with that because if the new book comes out, you have to start all the way back here and read all these books to
Yeah.
catch up to this one that you heard was really good. So what I wanted to focus on, my original goal was just to write nothing but trilogies.
Okay.
So Rise of the Automated Empire is the beginning of the Automated Empire, or what will become known as the Automated Empire. It was supposed to be 3 books, already explained why it's now 4, but that's it. Rise of the Automated Empire is now and forever will be 4 books. There may be a novella that ties in, but it's not a necessary piece. And there's a short story out there that happens at the same time. What I'm working on now with that other character 5 years later is called Agent of the Automated Empire. It's planned out to be a trilogy. I have all the way, 4,000 years later, I have Fall of the Automated Empire, and I have ideas for books that are beyond the Automated Empire. And I have 2 trilogies that take place during the Automated Empire. So my idea is you do these stories and have a complete set of books that somebody can start anywhere. At the beginning of any of these trilogies, you can start and get into this world. You'll see connections. For example, in Legends of the Automated Empire, there is a point where somebody is taking a girl on a date and they wander through this garden and there's a statue of Admiral, what was her name? Brenna Dotseth. Admiral Dotseth is right there, right? If you see that, it's, you see that, that's an exploration, that's, great. But then if you go back and read the first series, in the very first book, in Final Assembly, you are introduced to Ensign Brenna Dotseth, who has just gotten qualified her watch station. So, I mean,
Yeah.
the universe is full and connected, and you can see the connections, not necessary to enjoy the story, but I want these little surprises,
Yeah.
that you can read them in any order. If you read the first one, you go over here, it's like, oh yeah, Admiral, right, I remember. Or and you see the Admiral, you come back here, it's like, oh, she's Nansen. Oh, and then you see her progression. So, I've got these real characters, and they don't stay like on the ship. The ship goes through in the first story, the ship goes through a couple of captains. It's not, somebody's not tied to the same command forever like in Star Trek,
Yeah.
where one captain is captain of the ship until the actor retires. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But the ship also gets changes, but yeah, I don't know. I just want it to be a little bit more realistic when I do things like that, especially how the military is portrayed. Not all of the military is about going out and shooting things.
Yeah.
In fact, most of the military is training to handle situations and shoot things. It's a very different attitude.
Yeah.
So,
So do we still only have 2 viewers?
yeah, 2 there. Nobody's called in. I don't know.
Well, it was a great idea.
Well, thank you. I think next time I'll try to do something with a little bit more, ahead of
Structure?
time.
Yeah. Well,
No,
but
I think the structure was fine. We need to
yeah.
3 or 4 more people, and then I wanted to get readers involved too. But
Yeah, that would have been nice.
yeah, it's just a thought because I would much rather be at DragonCon.
Oh, me too. Oh,
But
man. The Weston is calling my name. The bar in the Weston is calling my name. I miss that. I haven't been to DragonCon in, so many. I can't, and it's not even a question of I can't afford it because I can't, but I can't leave the house right now because um I need help. Usually when I went to a convention in my later years because of my mobility issues, I would take my son with me. And he would see that I was okay. I mean, I have been abandoned by people in panel rooms where I'm up on the stage and there's nobody to help me down.
Oh,
This has happened, and I will not mention the particular author who did this to me, but he has earned a big poo-poo emoji in my life. But he just took all his fans and he left. And there I am on the stage not being able to get down. So I travel with somebody to avoid that. But we
One of
can't
the
leave my husband alone because we can't leave him alone. We just can't.
one of the marks of pride in my fanness is that the first time I was at that's the first time. Well, one time I was at Mysticon, which is in Roanoke, Virginia.
Mhm.
Larry Niven was there,
Oh, nice.
and they had put him up on a stage. And the guy who was making sure that Larry was okay asked me if I would help him off the stage.
Oh, nice.
Apparently, Larry doesn't like to be helped.
Oh, no.
He
Oh,
doesn't like
no.
to be made to feel old.
Yeah.
And I understood this from the get-go, from the way they had been talking. So I went up there, put out my arm and says, "Hey, Larry, I'm your banister." He just looked at me and just shook his head and I helped him off the stage. He's a really nice guy,
Yeah.
by the way. I was on a panel with him that year. That's right, I was a guest, so it wouldn't have been the first time. Um, and the guy who was running the panel, a guy named Jim Bell, he emailed us ahead of time with all these questions and things he wanted to ask. And then when he found out Larry was going to be on the panel, he wrote back and said, "Cancel all of that. Just whatever the questions are, try to redirect it back to have Larry talk." So we spent the whole hour asking Larry questions.
Nice. Well, that's fun. That's fun.
It was. It was. All right. Well, if you want to drop off and go, I'll just turn this into a writing sprint until somebody shows
Okay.
up.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't yeah, no, I have some things I have to take care of. It's
Okay.
payday, so I gotta do bills. So this was ugh, God help me. I need to sell a lot of books. Audiobooks, buy the audiobooks.
Right.
I hate to be that way. It's terrible. But
No, I get it. I
being
get it.
retired on Social Security is one of the worst ways to live. Seriously, we had a lot of money at one point. It's all gone now.
I hear you. I was taking a good run at it. I thought, when I turned 67, the house will be paid off the same month I turned 67.
Yeah.
So I thought at some point after that, I'll be able to retire and I'll be able to just barely make it on Social Security and then sell books for a little bit of extra. Well, that plan was shot to hell when I got laid off from Truist.
Ugh.
Now here it is a year later, and I just got laid off again. And I'm like, I got to go find yet another job.
And see, I can't. I can't. I don't drive. I'm 71 years old. Seriously, why should I have to think about getting a part-time job?
Exactly. Exactly. You should be just selling books.
That's right. I should have people carrying me around like Anne Rice.
There you go. Do you do local
Anyways,
conventions though? Up around there?
I don't do any conventions, like I said, because I can't leave my husband home alone.
Okay.
Oh, I can't take him with me
Well,
either because I can't. So at this point in time, I don't see any conventions in my future.
okay.
And if I did a convention, it would be DragonCon
Yeah.
because that's my favorite one.
Bring
I used to
somebody.
do a lot of the HWA meetings when I was in the Horror Writers Association, but I am no longer, for all sorts of reasons, in the Horror Writers Association.
If you do DragonCon, bring a lot of books, like truck them across country.
Yeah.
Have somebody that you trust dedicated to just sitting there selling books all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good tip. But yeah, it's not going to happen for a while. So,
I hear you.
however, life is good, I guess. I see Deirdre the vampire, her saying is life goes on.
Okay.
Vivienne says life is good. And I need to cultivate the life is good as opposed to life goes on, because life goes on has this kind of like, oh shit, life goes on and on
And
and
see,
on and on.
and that right there, you hit on. I was just thinking that the only real saying that gets repeated is from Ted, the Marine, who ends up uh, with the younger sister under his wing and more. Uh, his whole thing is every time he realizes something hasn't gone his way, it's like, oh shit. Well, shit.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Deirdre doesn't swear. So,
Well,
well, she uses goddamn and Christ a lot
uh,
and damn a lot, but she
well,
doesn't use the F word.
mhm.
I leave that to my other characters. And
I
Vivienne
have
doesn't
Marines.
swear because she's much more expressive.
I
So
have
actually, when
Marines
she
and Navy.
swears, she
So,
swears in French. So nobody understands what she's saying.
right.
And usually it has to do with kiss my ass, you insolent pig, is one of her favorite sayings, which I used to know in French fluently, but not anymore. So,
Cool.
anyways.
Okay. Well,
All righty. This was fun, Dennis. I think that you should probably do something like this all the time.
I
You're
think
a great host.
oh, thank you. Thank you. I think that's a good idea. And I
Yeah.
think I'll try to do this, set up a regular schedule and just have people pop in and talk.
Yeah.
That's all I really want to do is talk. And oh, hey, by the way, I've got books,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
all right.
So, okay, cool. Thanks, everybody. You'll
Great.
catch people on the YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel, and I'll probably put a thumbnail on it and just let it sit and see what
I'll put
happens.
it up on my YouTube channel too if you send me a link to it. So,
Okay, I'll
okay.
do that.
All righty.
As a matter
Awesome.
of fact, the link is on the Facebook post.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I will do that. I need to add some stuff to my YouTube channel anyway. So,
Okay. All
okay. Very good. Nice seeing you. Thank you.
right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Leave me.
All righty then. For now, I will be back momentarily. So let's see. On soon. There we go. There it is. Well, hello there. I am back again. And we've got nobody else in the stream. So I'm going to write a little bit, I think. And you can expect, if nobody joins me, this is the part I'll cut off the end. All right. Oh, and for anybody who wants a sneak peek, that is what I am working on. Murdering Marco. All right. Enough playing around. Bonus points for anybody who can tell me where that dragon comes from. Spoiler alert for Murdering Mariko. Let's see if anybody actually finds this shit. I'm at the point where they're trying to find more controllers to give Autogov more power so it can break into the security systems on Van Leer habitat. Don't know where they're going to get them from. I got to find 7,000 controllers. Where could they come from? Where could they come from? 7,000. That's quite a few. I don't know why I wrote that number, but I did, and it's there, so that must be it, right? Can't ship them in because the government is scanning packages, making sure nobody's bringing in extra hardware. They almost caught them with the nanites, almost, but not quite. Okay. Well, I'm going to call it quits, and I'm going to go find out where they can possibly get 7,000 controllers. Okay. If you're still listening at this point, you've just got a spoiler for a book that I'm working on right now. Pop by the store. I'll have the link in the description.